Hi everyone, I'm Emma, a certified dog trainer.
And I'm Kirsten, a certified dog behavior consultant.
And this is Dog Chats. Join us as we chat about dog behavior, having fun with your dogs, and building relationships. We will offer practical advice and a bit of humor.
Hello and welcome to episode 13, Emma's favorite number. I was a little worried about having an episode 13, but I can assure you this is going to be one of probably our most intellectual and interesting podcasts yet. We're going to discuss the social intelligence of dogs, the fact that they have to network with other dogs, humans, sometimes cats, sometimes horses. I mean, it's phenomenal how much genius they display in their social skills and emotional skills.
So we thought we would start with going back to wolves because that's what everybody seems to connect with. Mm-hmm. We'll go into more discussion about that connection a little later. But we thought we would start with the word alpha because that's a big trigger.
Americans love that word.
Yes, and kind of have stuck with it. So we're going to go into a little bit of history about that. As trainers, there's a lot of us that work differently and may still use that word alpha. So we thought we would tell you a little bit about it, where it came from, how it connects to the wolves, and then we'll talk about dogs and their social interaction with each other. So back in the 1970s, there was a book published by David Misch that talked about alpha. He put the word alpha there for the leader of the wolf pack. And his book was based on some research that was done many years previous to that with some captive wolves, which have a totally different dynamic. And so as time went on and science advanced, he looked back at what he had done with the word alpha and said that no longer was what he thought it was.
Right.
Because the research was done with captive wolves who were making their own sort of pecking order because it wasn't the same as out in the wild.
Yeah, and I think they were all males.
And they could have been all males too. So he then kind of got into more research of looking at wolves out in the wild and their social network. And he found that it was more the mating males and females that looked like the leaders, if we're going to put it that way. And that they then had their offspring, and then sometimes the older wolves would also be kind of having that system in place. And so
dominance theory is right. What we're getting at.
Yeah. So let's talk about alpha and dominance because they do kind of, for some reason, they stick together.
Yeah. And, I said how Americans love the word alpha. Some of this comes back from our military roots and this idea of, having a subordinate and somebody who's in charge of everybody. And so there is a big part of American culture, I believe, that respects the leader and thinks that in order to be a leader, you have to put force or pressure on other members in the group. And unfortunately, that original model, that dominance model, showed that there was going to be one person who was the most forceful, the most assertive, and the other people would kind of fall to whatever that person said, and then that transferred to these, I'm pretty sure it was 6 young males, which would never happen in the wild, right?
Wolves.
Yes. 6 young wolves in captivity that was being studied. And that's where, he did cease, the original researcher, some of this pinning and rolling, a lot of that ritualized aggressive behavior, meaning lots of noise, lots of showing of teeth, lots of body language without actual damage done.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to that later.
And his revised version of what he was seeing too with wolves in the wild is that, yes, there is dominance, but we use the word dominance in such like a pinning down and stuff like that.
Yep.
His version of dominance is like, somebody that the wolf is kind of looking out and by showing good example, he's leading the others.
Yeah.
And he said he very rarely was seeing pinning down or anything like that, but he saw it, but it wasn't happening that much, that it was mostly them directing.
Right, that ritualized aggression.
Yeah, what needed to be done. Yeah.
And that also I think it's important to point out that it was the mama and papa wolf were typically the alpha wolves. So, and we'll get into that later, but that became this whole idea of the parenting our dog, parenting the pack. but that it wasn't, the strongest wolf in the pack that became the dominant one. It was often the one that was giving birth to everybody.
Yes, the ones that were busy mating.
Exactly.
Yeah. So transitioning that into the way we throw around alpha now with dogs, it just doesn't make any sense.
No.
Because first of all, dogs aren't pack animals,
Nope.
right? Let's
No.
even look at that,
Yeah.
the difference between, always comparing dogs to wolves.
Yeah.
They're not pack animals. Even street dogs occasionally will form packs for a very short time and then kind of disperse and be doing their own thing.
Yeah, very fluid,
Yeah,
dynamic.
yeah.
Yeah, because when dogs and wolves evolved away from their common ancestor, I'm just going to say it because that's what I believe. Dogs became scavengers. They were not in a pack hunting together. They were more scavenging, eating human waste, garbage, you know, the leftover meat. You can't have a pack fighting over the garbage. It's more like a coyote. Like it's much better to have one just kind of quietly coming in. So socially, dogs don't live in packs, even in the wild, like you were saying, and
Yes.
even unknown dogs. The street dogs in parts of our world are more fluid.
Yes. So let's talk about the family dynamic as in the humans and the dog. A lot of people would see that as a pack.
That the human family is a
The
pack.
human family with their dog.
Well,
is a
sure,
pack.
because they want to be the alpha if they're the parent, right? That feels good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we do hear the word alpha, like he's being alpha.
Right. Or he is alpha.
Or
Like,
he's alpha, or
yeah.
he's being very dominant. And like I said, dominance, that word is there, but in a different way than we're using it.
Yeah.
So for our dogs, let's chat about how their social network works and how our word alpha doesn't really work with that dynamic.
So you can kind of guess that Em and I are leading you to the understanding that
Are we being alpha?
we are we're being a little dominant. That the pack theory is no longer really accepted as science for dogs. It's still probably certainly applies to the science for wolves.
Yes.
I am not a wolf expert, so I
And
can't
I'm
speak to
not a
that.
scientist.
Yeah.
So,
So that lupomorph theory, making dogs into wolves, is no longer accepted as science. What came next was what they called the baby morph theory. In other words, like dogs are our babies. Well, if the alpha wolves are the parents, Kirsten's a parent, and so I am alpha to my two girls. And we kind of went with that for a while, parent your dog. But it's not necessarily accurate because 80% of dogs in the world are unowned. And there's plenty of street dogs that aren't treated like children, that don't come to the door needing all their resources controlled. And it also doesn't explain having the adult dogs in your home. It might be that way, like when you have a puppy, your puppy, it could be more of a parent-child relationship. But if you have an adult dog who's 14 and probably so much wiser than you in so many ways, it's closer to a friendship if we're looking at like human social networks.
I like that. I like that thought, and that's just something kind of new to me that you have mentioned and we've started discussing. Because I always, when people talk about my dog's being alpha, he's trying to be the leader of the pack. I talk about family dynamics and how, you're just the leader and you're just giving direction, stepping in when you need to, just watching and letting good choices be made
Yeah.
at other times. But I also like this thing of like they are a puppy, but then they're an adult dog.
Right. And just much more competent than, say, the child. So that idea of the parent stepping in, I think that's very common. And I think there is that parent leader role in human families. But a true alpha, if we're going to use the scientific word of alpha, when they study like the horses in a herd, it's the animal that doesn't have to do much. It's not the animal doing corrections. It's not the animal pinning anybody down. It's the one who's actually got so much control over the group that they don't have to do those aggressive, assertive displays. So the stallion is typically, there's one stallion, and he's the alpha horse.
Yes.
But then the alpha female is called the passive leader. And it's because she doesn't fight that everybody actually likes her. Nobody
Yes.
likes the stallion
Because he fights.
because he's an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
All right,
So this idea of dogs having these fluid relationships, it's kind of amazing. And it's not that there isn't status in the world, right?
No.
Or dominance.
Let's talk about that in humans before we
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, because when I think about myself, like I sometimes I imagine I'm kind of a dominant person, because I like to be in control. I'm a type A person who pretends to be type B. Like everybody's like, "You're so calm," and I'm like, "Yeah, I am working my ass off to look calm right now." But there are certainly situations like when I walk into even the pharmacy and I'm having to wait for my pharmacist to come over, I'm not dominant there because I'm not going to get what I want if I'm an asshole, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Assertiveness only works at certain times. And if I think about my relationship with my big brother,
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely the little sister.
Yeah.
It's we have all these different
Different
relationships,
dynamics,
different
like,
dynamics.
and every day can change. One day
Yes.
you're like up front and you're the one taking control, and the next day you're sitting back and somebody else is taking
Yep.
control. So that's why that whole alpha thing doesn't make sense,
Right.
because the dog isn't always out front, like making decisions on everything all the time, and everybody else is just sitting back. It's
Yep.
just environment and what's happening at that very moment.
So true. Yep. Because status is real. Like I always think of Trish King saying status is real. And you see this at a dog park. There's two dogs playing. That gate opens. A third dog walks in. And there is a little bit of, hey, the same thing I think that happens at a bar. Who's this guy? What are his moves? What's he wearing tonight? All of that is very real, but it's constantly changing. It's not like, Fido is alpha dog with every single dog in that dog park.
No.
And the fact that that's constantly changing, that's why I say dogs are social geniuses because it's
Can adjust.
adapting. Yeah,
Yeah,
adjusting and reading
and
each
that's the
other.
same with a lot of animals. And if you really think about a dog park, now we're really getting into it, right? A dog park is like the dogs in there are not part of a family.
Right.
They're all different. They're put in there together. They're going to have different dynamics. The pecking order changes every time another dog
Yep.
almost goes in there. It changes the whole dynamic and how it looks. And it's not always set. Like, it's not
Yep.
the same set of dogs that are always in there. So we could actually look at it and say, okay, that's what it looks like. It's continuously changing.
Right.
So there's nothing that we can look at and say, well, we can look at body language and all of that, but nothing that we can say, oh, that's the dog that's being the alpha.
Yeah, it's so fluid.
Yes.
Yeah. And then there's, the kind of assertive behaviors that come out in play, which some of that play, Ray Coppinger's theory was that it's practicing these social relationships and practicing, how to read each other very dramatically and inviting and engaging and chase. And it used to prepare dogs for hunting and gathering out in the wild. And now I think it just prepares them for reading each other in their communities.
Tell me a little bit about one of the things that you mentioned that's really interesting to me is sort of the dynamics you were saying between the social interactions with humans and then with other dogs and then with cats or whatever else, squirrels or whatever they
Yeah.
might see.
Dogs have to grow up learning how to read other dogs. And we talked about this in the body language episode. And it's crazy how hard that is sometimes with different breeds, like a pug trying to read a Brittany Spaniel and vice versa. And so they speak so many different languages anyway. And then you think about adding a human to that and the human response. In these studies they've done with human agonistic responses, in other words, a human yelling at a dog. And it's amazing because they map the faces through that facial action. So, the dogs are on the computer screen and they're monitoring them, and then somebody comes in the room and yells at the dog, and how it's so beautiful how often they all turn away. And if the person yells, I can't remember now because it's right brain or left brain, but dogs will turn one way, look down, be diminutive, all these calming, gentle signals to try to calm that human down. Where I think humans think of dogs as coming in like trying to pick a fight and assertive. And so much of what the dog is doing is just trying to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now
Yeah.
to the other dog. And, you might get a little barking, you might get the teeth showing, but that's to prevent a problem. That's that economy of behavior. I don't actually want to fight you. I just want some space. I just want you to back off. But then when humans come at dogs hard and the dog acts very polite and looks away, the humans think, I
Yes.
just put that dog in his place. When really that dog is just preventing a bad interaction.
Yes. And the putting in their place is something that happens again with that old method that we seem to be stuck in.
Yeah.
Pinning down.
Yeah.
You
Can I jump
know,
in and tell a story about that? I was thinking
absolutely.
on the drive to your house.
Absolutely.
So in 1995, I had a Catahoula puppy. She was 4 months old, and I went to what was then called the Marin Obedience School in Kentfield. And day one, they had us for after we put the choke chains on the dog. I mean, and this was 95, right? And I didn't bring like they handed you a choke chain to put
That
on.
was
That was
normal.
it.
That was the norm.
We started with the alpha roll,
Wow.
and I'm like looking around the room thinking, this is nuts. Like, does anybody else do this? Is nuts? I have a 4 month old puppy, but they're all doing it. You know, like these old ladies are getting on their knees on the Kent Middle School gym floor, kneeling, holding the poodle down. The owner, I mean, the class teacher, instructor had a King Charles. And I was like, why are you holding down your King Charles? And she's explaining, we have to do this so they understand that we're the leader, so they don't quit. And it felt so wrong. I never went back.
I don't understand as humans how we think we're so smart,
Yeah.
and then we were doing something so like ridiculous.
Right?
You know, it just back to the book that was published in 1970. The man cannot get that book to not be published.
No.
It continues to be published and people buy it.
Yeah.
Even though he has changed it's not that he's changed his mind, but he said something wonderful like science evolves. And it has evolved from the time that he did his research. And that's why it's changed.
Yeah. He didn't
It's
have all
still-
the information.
He didn't have all the information. And it's still the same. We're talking about this. And in another 5 years, we'll have discovered something else
Yeah.
that we didn't think about. So
hope so.
always good to be evolving and not stuck in that image of that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be.
Yeah.
We're already like humans are already like that icky dominant crap. Look at what's going on in the world. You know what I mean? But why did we think we had to pretend we were a wolf?
Why did we think? And, and even as much as I just said that we're moving away from the parent-child theory, can you imagine if you're in Target and some kid starts asking for something and the parent turns around and like pins her 3-year-old on the ground?
I know.
Like,
We'd all
CBS
be
would over
arrested.
that. Oh,
We'd
totally.
totally be arrested.
Yeah. And yet we were told, I feel like by our culture, that was what we needed to do to be
Yeah.
good leaders.
Yeah, and why did we decide a dog needed to be?
Because they
So-
take it, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know why we didn't have bad dogs. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
like, oh, we must do this because they're going to eat us if we don't.
Right?
You know,
Yeah. I mean, that's that whole...
we have much more respect for a lion coming up to us
Yeah.
or a bear than we do. You know, we just go, okay, I'm walking away. I'm not going to bother you.
So true.
But with the dog, we're just like, yeah, because we can.
Because we can. And
Yeah.
and this very new idea that all dogs need training, they really lived with humans for 30,000 years. And it's basically since the 90s, maybe, that we decided pet dogs need to be trained.
Yes, and I know that's our job. That's our job. That's how
Mm-hmm.
we started, and we, are considered dog trainers. But if you've listened to any of our podcasts, our frame of mind is changing. That there's the way we look at it now is we're giving skills that you can live together happily.
Mm-hmm.
That it doesn't mean that you have to have your 1 minute sit stay in a perfect position.
Right.
That we're working on calmness and just relaxation and being able to function and be off leash and all that great stuff to work together.
And that is just trying to help the pet dog live in our crazy environment.
Yes, because
Right.
we've changed that too.
Yeah.
If we're going to look at history over the last 30 years
Yeah.
or whatever, even since 1970 when that book came out, is that, our environment's changed. Dogs were, as we've also mentioned in another podcast or another episode, that dogs used to be kind of hanging out much more, like out in your front lawn.
More
and
choice.
You didn't really have to lock the gate. They just
Yeah.
hung out. Like that was their home. Like I used to go out to my grandmother's during the summer and all the farm dogs would be in their areas. There wouldn't be any gates.
Yeah.
They'd just come out barking to their boundary, but they'd never go out any further than that.
Yeah.
Like they had their space, and how we've changed that and really kind of packed it into not really having much choice about anything.
So true. I want to segue back, if you don't mind.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We could go on. We're like so excited about this.
Because one of the things that Emma and I were talking about earlier was the fact that dogs are often compared to wolves, right? And how dogs are about as similar to wolves genetically as we are to apes. Yet nobody's walking around saying, humans evolved from apes, so we should be grooming each other or this or that. That's absurd to make
Yes.
that
Yes.
comparison. And that dogs are actually more socially and genetically connected to dingoes and jackals and coyotes, more solitary type animals that aren't pack animals, and that dogs self-selected by following humans around. This is the theory. Eating our garbage, eating our leftover food, and then they were selected a second time through artificial selection. Where dingoes also self-selected because they would come to the camps but they were never kind of captured and then made pets and domesticated again with artificial selection. But if you really want to think about your dog as a wild animal, think more dingo than wolf. That will
Yes.
maybe help you understand the lack of pack
Girl
mentality.
actually looks like a dingo.
She does a very handsome dingo.
And back to the social interactions, one of the things that, we both do before we do this is we kind of, read and look at stuff. And one of the things came up when I was kind of looking into social interactions was research that's done that for us as humans, that we are more social with humans if you have a dog. So I know that's kind of not their social network, but I think that's fascinating
Yep.
to think that we are more social because we have a dog. And there's obvious reasons, like if somebody else has a dog, you're going to go up and talk to them and your dogs are going to interact with each other.
Yeah.
Which creates something different than if you were just walking around without a dog. People rarely say hi to you, even when you're on a trail these days.
Yeah.
So just even that social interaction, how that's created,
Yeah.
is fascinating too.
Not only do dogs make us more social, they also kind of feed our social energy, literally our oxytocin, our stress hormone, the good feeling when we're looking at our dog, we're touching our dog. Studies show that even making eye contact with a dog produces that hormone. It's similar to the mother-child or the romantic relationship hormone. So I know it's odd, but it's the same hormone. It's very cool. And I've had clients say to me, I'm overwhelmed by my love for my dog. Like I'm almost embarrassed for people to know how much I love my dog, but it's natural and it's this beautiful chemical thing that happens because of the stress hormones and because of that attachment bond, similar to the attachment studies done with parents and children. There were studies done where the child was left in the room and then the parent came in and they watched, the child would talk to the parent, play with the parent, parent leaves, stranger comes in, and the child, doesn't want to interact with a stranger.
Yes.
So they did a very similar study where they copied it with dogs, and it was almost identical, with dogs wanting to be with, their proposed guardian as
Yes.
opposed to a stranger. Yet I think we expect dogs to love all strangers.
Yeah, well, that is a whole episode on its own,
Yeah.
right? That we just, when people say, "Can I say hi to your dog?" we see people going, "Go say hi."
Yeah.
And the dog doesn't want to be petted by every
Right.
person that's out there,
Unless you're a golden retriever.
or you're a therapy dog, right?
Yeah.
You just, and that's usually a golden retriever,
Right.
where they just want, they're like, just
Yeah.
anything you want.
Yep.
Like, and Buddy's, Chihuahua, but he's kind of like that too. He's like, that feeds me.
Totally.
So I enjoy that. But a lot of dogs, especially if they're very cute looking,
Yeah.
get a lot of attention. And sometimes you can see them kind of going, yeah, I'm dealing with this, but I don't love it.
Right? And how usually the dogs will read that.
Yes.
And we need to help humans, I think, read that more.
Yeah, we need to be smarter.
And I was working with a client in the Tiburon bike path today with what I would call a very normal dog who's, semi-dog selective, great with most dogs. And this giant old golden retriever was being pulled over towards us with the owner. And the dog was sending all these great messages, bristling the hair, looking away, lifting a lip, and the golden retriever was like, doo, 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 doo. Hi, I'm coming in to say hi. And of course it went, blah, 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 right? Which is total normal. That's
Yes.
that display so that there isn't a conflict, so there doesn't have to be that encounter. But, you can imagine the golden retriever's face, and the golden retriever were both
yes.
like, oh, Judgment.
How did this happen?
How did this happen? We love everyone.
Yes, yes. And that very same dog you were talking about with a smaller dog or with a
Yep.
different dog
Or off leash.
could have a totally different
Yeah.
reaction,
Oh, absolutely.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. So the dynamics are always changing. The environment is changing it. The what's in the environment, the people, the
Right. How we're
dogs.
acting, you know?
Yeah, everything changes behavior, which is
So
fascinating.
fluid. You know, just this idea of evolution. When we looked at wolves, and I keep talking about these aggressive displays and how so much of it is like, doing the, yeah, what do you got dance kind of thing. So we think about wolves as having all of these agonistic displays or aggressive displays just to make their point so they don't have to fight. So they're avoiding conflict. And what happened when humans were later genetically selecting among dog breeds, we messed with some of that. We took, let's say, the guardian dogs and we took away some of those warning signs.
Yes.
And then we bring those guardian dogs to the dog park. And the other dogs are like, hey, man, I didn't know that you wanted space. And that's confusing. And that's something we did, right?
Yes, yes.
Well, I mean, I think just circling back to talking about the social genius of dogs, they are not necessarily pack animals, but they have evolved to learn how to live in human families, pet
Yes.
dogs,
Yes.
despite all these artificially selected things that we either, you know,
Yeah.
added or took away from their natural behaviors.
Yeah.
And
And we have to look at the if we're going to research, like if we're going to start comparing dogs to wolves, I think really what we should be doing is doing the research of what the dog and the human family dynamic is,
Yep.
and do research on how they communicate with each other,
Yes.
rather than looking at wolves and wolf packs and
Yep.
how they're doing stuff.
So
We
true.
have to look at we have enough now time where we've been together as dogs and humans that we could be doing that research and looking at that.
Yep, I love it.
Rather than just keep comparing to wolves and what we need to do to dominate.
Right. Right,
which
and our,
we,
expecting dogs to be wolves.
yes. And if you ever have seen a hybrid or a wolf, you know that there's a big
Yeah,
difference.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that. So that's our call to action, and it's probably out there, and maybe you and I are going to go find
We're
it,
gonna go
or
find
somebody
it.
will email it to
Yes.
us. But we want to talk about, the human family network and dogs' roles, pet dogs' roles in that, and how that communication system will then mirror behavior competencies.
Yeah. So we're going to finish up on this topic, but we're going to mention a couple of things. One of them being is if you have something you want us to discuss, please email us because we're open to that. We've got a couple of suggestions already.
I check email like 5 times a day for the
There you go.
podcast.
Well, there you go. Send it to Kirsten then.
No, to the podcast.
To the podcast. And then also, just because it's summer, obviously it depends when you listen to this episode, but it is June of 2023.
Even though it doesn't
right
feel
now.
like it today.
It doesn't feel like it in California today. It's raining. But want to remind you that there is episodes on summer outings and camping. So those are episodes that we did last year. We're almost a year
Wow.
into our podcast. So want to say if you are doing
Hey,
those
happy
things,
anniversary.
well, we'll do that next month. We'll have a big anniversary
okay.
episode. So if you're interested in that and want some more information, go check it out. And then lastly, we want to do a little update.
Yes. About the garage sale.
Yes.
And the money that we raised for the Limerick Animal Welfare Sanctuary.
Which was one of our episodes too, where we interviewed Marion Fitzgibbon.
Yep. And they had a goal of raising $10,000 themselves for their vet clinic. And we were able to contribute.
3,500.
Very nice.
So we're very happy with that. We're going to try and get to 5,000 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So we have some other stuff that we're going to do, but just wanted to give you an update. If you did hear that episode, you got in there, you give some donations, donations to the garage sale or online. We really appreciate it. Go check that episode out if you haven't checked it out yet.
Excellent. Thanks for tuning in today, and hope you'll join us for our next episode. You can reach Emma at
ecdogtraining.com or on Instagram at ecdog_training, and Kirsten at
kwhappydogs.com or on Facebook at kwhappydogs. Don't forget to hit subscribe. See you next time.